we will be discussing at this time the whole matter of what's happening in France. We'll be looking at the relevance to the Caribbean. It seems we're a long way from France, but is there anything that we need to know as a Caribbean people about the French situation and how it can become a Caribbean situation? Let's look a little at it. And first, I want to say that France has approximately 9% Muslim population at this time. And quite a bit of it came in from the mass migration of persons seeking asylum. And so quite a few European countries opened their borders to migration from North Africa and the Middle East. Now here it is, they have increased their Muslim populations, and France has become, to some degree, Islamized. At least people were fearing it would become.
A developing story, a history teacher decapitated after discussing caricatures of Islam's prophet Muhammad in class. The murder took place today on a street in a suburb of Paris. Police then shot and killed the suspect. They're investigating the teacher's murder as an act of terrorism, and it's unclear at this point.
Particular drawing was done some years ago in France by a particular media host. So he goes for it, and before he even shows it, he tells the students if this is offensive for any religious reason, for instance, if you're a Muslim, you're free to leave the class during this particular section of it. And then he shows them and he discusses freedom of religion. So the kids went out of class, discussed with parents and others. And as a result, a young man, I think he's 18 years old, and he killed Patty and beheaded him and showed the picture of him with the head on social media. That's the first thing that sparked recent trouble. Now, from that, what took place next? You want to tell us the second incident, Mr. Pasley?
What followed was an incident at a church.
Yes.
Persons were gathered, and somebody came in and started to shout in their language, "God is great," and wielding a knife, and 3 persons died in that incident. Mm-hmm. And that followed on the heels of the previous incident.
1 person out of that 3 was beheaded again. And now there's a third incident, which we're not sure is linked to these 2 Islamist attacks or not. We're waiting to get a priest was shot. We're not sure what that is about. Whatever it is, reactions. Mr. Rowe, what reactions? What is the reaction? What took place?
Well, the reaction of the president, Macron, in France, he had an interview and the different media broadcasts where now they have said that they are going to crack down on what they categorize as radical Muslims. And so that is taking place. Then you have what they call now anti-French protests by what you would suspect to be persons who are attached to the Muslim community. And then you also have the French persons who are also protesting what took place against Patty and their fellow countrymen.
So the French ones actually protested against the Muslims in a sense. So let's backtrack a little. Macron, what Macron is trying to do, that's the president, he wants to develop an Islam faith in France, which is compatible with their culture. So they have like freedom of speech, etc. But apart from that, they're actually going to be deporting a number of persons that they think are radicalized Muslims, right? So that's what he's doing. The whole Muslim world has gone into uproar. And their title for Macron is Islamophobia. But one other reaction that we have not mentioned is that there's another part of the world that has joined with France. So the European Union countries actually sided with France. And India, for example, sided with France. So there are countries coming and saying, no, this is not acceptable. We want to side with France. All right, so we got a great overview of what took place. Now, how relevant is this to the Caribbean? Why are we way over on this side of the world even thinking about it?
Plus, is very relevant, because if we look at what has been happening, persons are being radicalized via the internet, via social media. Persons taking in the messages of preachers of Islam. And even in Jamaica, where we are now, recently we had to deport a Jamaican who was in Jamaica and busy radicalizing a lot of youngsters throughout the world. Based on how the world is now, there's no longer there are almost no boundaries anymore. A message that you have in one place can reach to the end of the world in seconds.
Very, very, very relevant to us. And what I think people do not realize is that Islam is not just a religion. It's a religion, but it's also a political system. So if you're going to truly follow the Islamic faith, you have to realize that ultimately it's also a political system. While in the Western world, they have developed a contrasting model, which is called separation of religion and state. So the state in the Western world is to different degrees in different countries secularized. Now for Christianity, as long as you allow us freedom of religion, we are okay with that. If we can worship freely and our faith is respected, we are okay with that. That means individual Christians can enter any level of government they choose as a career. That's okay. But they're not expected to take over the government and make the government a Christian government. If our state is not careful, we're going to be in the same situation as France. In fact, anybody at all. England, Britain has had a number of issues in recent times with Islamization. I haven't heard any recent incidents, but they have had incidents. So this is something the Caribbean needs to be aware of. But there's another factor in the Caribbean that we need to also understand, is that there are some Caribbean countries that have high percentage of Muslims. Jamaica is not one of those. We have a minute percentage. But a country like Trinidad has a high percentage of Muslims. And in fact, some years ago, there was a bombardment of parliament by Muslims in Trinidad. The Trinidadian government crushed the whole attempted coup and things went back to normal. But with the factor of radicalization, we are now running a risk of this same group in Trinidad or any other island becoming extremist. And then we'll have problems. We want our governments to be alert. We want our governments to really preserve what we have and actually increase it rather than decrease it. We do not want to end up in the dilemma of France. And I guarantee you, France is only one of many European nations that are going to end up in the same situation.